we've been through floods, but nothing like this.
It just came up. It's been like a tsunami almost.
They are images that are all too familiar and that none of us ever want to see hit close to home. Harvey, Irma, and Maria, and other storms of the 2017 season remind us of the devastating power of hurricanes. Over the next half hour, the Pinpoint Weather Team will get you and your family prepared for this season. We'll look at the outlook for hurricanes and tropical storms in 2018. We'll talk to the new director of the National Hurricane Center, who has local ties. And we'll also look at the changes in how we'll forecast hurricanes this year.
Eyewitness News presents Eye on Hurricanes 2018.
The 2018 hurricane season is here, which means it's time to prepare yourself and your family for whatever may come our way.
Coming off the heels of such a destructive season last year, the message can't be stressed enough. The time to prepare is now.
It only takes one storm to test our plans, and with that in mind, our goal for the next half hour is to get you prepared.
We begin with more on the forecast for this year. NOAA has released their forecast for the 2018 hurricane season. They're expecting about 10 to 16 tropical storms to develop for the upcoming season. 5 to 9 of those could become hurricanes, and 1 to 4 could become major hurricanes, category 3, 4, or 5. NOAA puts out a range, unlike Colorado State, that gives you a number. So you can see that compared to last year, expecting activity to be a little less than last year. But this forecast makes it an average to slightly above average season that they're expecting us to have for this coming hurricane season. But you can see the average 12, 6, and 3. So we may be just a little bit above the average. Hopefully we'll be closer to these average numbers. But again, we've seen quite a bit of activity over the past several years as far as the number of tropical storms and hurricanes. All right, the thought process in that forecast, NOAA believes that we're going from a neutral phase to an El Nino phase in the Pacific Ocean. Believe it or not, what happens in the Pacific plays a big part in the Atlantic basin as far as tropical systems go. Near average sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic Ocean, so temperatures aren't so much cooler than normal like they were earlier this year. Now they're more around the average, so we should see more development, more normal development in the Atlantic basin. And we're still in an era of active hurricane season that began back in 1995. So again, with that law of averages, we'll probably be above average again for this season. But again, recapping what El Nino and La Nina is. La Nina is a cooler than normal waters in the Pacific Ocean along the equator. That means for us light wind shear in the Atlantic basin. That means more tropical activity can develop. El Nino is warmer than normal waters in the Pacific along the equator. That means strong wind shear in our part of the tropics, so that it means less tropical activity to develop. And a neutral phase means normal water temperatures in the Pacific and normal wind shear across our area. So all that plays in part in how these storms develop. If you have strong wind shears, these thunderstorms that are trying to develop high in the atmosphere are blown off by strong winds, and that means less activity can develop. So we are looking at maybe going to an El Nino phase. So hopefully the end of the hurricane season might be settling down quite a bit. Hopefully it's as we get towards the months of August and September, when we definitely have our busy time of the year. Now, looking at the hurricane names, Alberto, Beryl, Chris, Debbie, Ernesto, Florence, and Gordon are the list of names that we'll start off with. This is one of 6 lists of names that we reuse, so a lot of these names may seem familiar, and if one of these storms becomes strong or does a lot of damage or a lot of fatalities, the name will get retired and replaced by another name with the same gender with the same letter. But remember, it only takes one storm to make it a bad year for us, so now's the time to get ready for this hurricane season.
This hurricane season, someone who knows South Louisiana well will be leading the team of forecasters at the National Hurricane Center.
Ken Graham was named director of the Hurricane Center back in March. He's headed up the National Weather Service office in Slidell for the past 10 years. And we got a chance to sit down with him recently to talk about his important new role. Having someone with your detailed knowledge of South Louisiana, South Mississippi can only help us during this upcoming hurricane season, correct?
Well, I mean, look at what we've experienced for the last 10 years that I was at the New Orleans office. I mean, you had Gustav, Ike, and their storms. But then you think about what we gained from Isaac. a Category 1 that puts more water in Lake Pontchartrain than Katrina because of the size, because of the slowness. So yeah, those experiences just, you know, fortify the science, but not only that, it fortifies just the importance of the messaging, to try to message the impacts of a Category 1 storm that are going to push more water than a previous storm that was a Category, you know, 3 and 4. Yeah, I carry all that with me to the Hurricane Center.
What would you say that the National Hurricane Center has been doing well, and what would you like to see change? What have they been doing wrong?
So you really, going back, you know, 10 years plus, you look at the advancements in the science and the modeling, and we're getting amazing at really looking at the actual track of a hurricane. We're getting so much better. And 2017 set a record, the best forecasting the track that we've had. So I think there's a lot of things going well, and we want to continue that. And I think, you know, we look at the dangers of water, and I think at my time at the Hurricane Center, we're going to continue to message those dangers of water. And you really look at it, storm surge, the fatalities from storm surge, that's 50% of the fatalities from storm surge. Another 25% is the inland water. And if you look at offshore, you're up to 90% of the fatalities. So for me, you know, looking at the experiences in Louisiana and really looking at being at the Hurricane Center, we're going to continue a lot of that work.
If you can focus on one goal as the director of the National Hurricane Center, what would that be?
Lots of goals, but you know, I think it's something near and dear to my heart. It's you know, looking at the success of the storm surge watch and warning, and why successful? Well, because there's social and behavioral science behind those products. It's one thing for a meteorologist to say, this is what I think you need. Here's something. I think you'll like that. What do I know? Right? You know the science, but do you really know what's really actionable and understandable? So one of the things I really like to do, and we're having a lot of conversations about it, can we get social science and behavioral science behind everything else? Can we really look at everything that we do and get to a point where we know there's that kind of science behind it from a social perspective? We know the physical science is there. Is there social science behind that? And then we know that people understand it and it becomes actionable when there's the next hurricane.
Up next, this year, some new high-tech tools will give us views of hurricanes like we've never seen before. Plus, we'll run through some of the items you should have in your emergency kit this summer as our Eye on Hurricane special continues.